I took time off work to care for my ailing father-in-law while everyone else went on vacation. When they got back, they claimed I'd manipulated the will and had me removed from the family group chat. I didn't say a word, but a letter from his lawyer said plenty. I didn't do it for money.
I need to start with that.
When Walter started declining, I stepped up because I respected him. He was a good man, better than my own husband, if I'm being honest. He never once made me feel like I owed him anything, even though he did more for me than most people in my life ever had. So when the Parkinson's got worse, and it was clear he couldn't manage on his own anymore, I said I'd help. I brought it up at dinner with Drew. He didn't say much, just nodded, like it was expected. But when I said I might need to take time off work, he barely looked up from his phone. You're gonna burn all your PTO for this? That should have been my first clue. Mark didn't even pretend. He flat out said, I've had this cruise booked for a year. Brittany gave one of her usual excuses about her kids and her job and how she's not a nurse. So I packed a bag and drove the 45 minutes to Walter's place in Goose Creek. What I walked into was worse than I thought. He was thin, shaky, and confused. There was spoiled food in the fridge, unopened bills on the table, and a dent in the wall from where he'd fallen a week before. No one knew. No one cared enough to check. So I cleaned,
Cooked.
got his meds straightened out, made charts, called doctors. Every night I'd sit with him on the couch, holding his hand while he told me stories from his Navy days. He couldn't remember what he'd eaten for lunch, but he remembered the color of the sky the day his ship pulled into port in Okinawa. Drew didn't visit once, not even on weekends. Brittany called twice in 2 months. Mark didn't call at all. I wiped blood from Walter's nose when he had bad nosebleeds. I helped him use the toilet when he couldn't walk anymore. I cleaned up when he had an accident and cried from embarrassment. I held him through panic attacks when he thought his dead wife was still alive. It broke something in me, watching someone fade like that. I kept telling myself that this was what love looked like, doing the hard thing because it was right. He died in his sleep. It was quiet. I knew it was coming that night.
He barely spoke all day.
He squeezed my hand once and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart." That was the last thing he ever said. I called Drew. No answer. I called twice more. Left voicemails. I called Mark and Brittany. Nothing for hours. They showed up looking annoyed. Like I'd messed up their plans. Mark asked why I hadn't gotten a nurse. Brittany said it felt like I was controlling everything. Drew didn't say anything, just stared through me.
I should have walked away right then.
Instead, I helped with the funeral arrangements, cleaned out the fridge, talked to Walter's lawyer when the others refused to go over the paperwork. I handled every damn detail while they acted like I was in their way. Then came the texts. Mark said, "It's shady how you were the only one there when he died." Brittany told Drew I had isolated their father and probably convinced him to change his will. Drew didn't defend me. He told me I needed to stay out of family matters. A week later, I realized I wasn't getting any group texts. I checked Drew's phone while he slept. I was gone from the family group chat.
Just like that.
Cut out. I confronted him. He barely looked at me and said, "You made this about you. You got what you wanted. You don't need us anymore." I moved into the guest room that night. Not a word from him since. Not even when I cried so hard I threw up. Then the envelope came. Walter had written it by hand. Shaky, but clear. Dated August 19th. "I know what they'll say, but I want you to have my house. You gave me my dignity when no one else would." The will was legal.
Witnessed. Signed. Filed.
I hadn't asked for a dime. Never even brought it up. But now I had the house. And they had no idea that Walter didn't just leave me a home. He left me receipts. Owning the house should have felt like something. Like I mattered. But all it did was open a door to more hate. I didn't even tell them at first. I just sat on the letter for days. I didn't know what to do. Every time I looked at Drew, I saw a stranger. He used to make me coffee in the mornings. Now, he wouldn't even share a meal with me. A week after the letter came, Walter's lawyer called. He said Mark had already called his office twice, asking for clarity about the will. Brittany too. They thought I had coerced Walter into changing it, that I'd used his condition to trick him. The lawyer said their tone got aggressive. He told them firmly the will was legal, valid, and final. They didn't take it well. That night, Drew came home drunk. First time in years. He stood in the kitchen, swaying, eyes red. He looked at me like I'd killed someone. "You poisoned him against us," he said. "You took advantage of a sick old man." I asked him if he even read the will, if he saw the letter. He didn't care.
He was confused. "You used that."
I laughed, bitter. He remembered my name, Drew. When he couldn't even remember what day it was, he still knew me. He threw a glass against the wall. That was the first time I was afraid of him. The next week, I got served papers. Mark and Brittany were contesting the will. Drew wasn't listed on the suit, but I knew he was behind it too. They were claiming undue influence, elder abuse, mental incompetence. Lies, all of it. But they had money. And they had time. I had neither. I went to the lawyer. He said they didn't have much of a case. But they could drag it out. Months. Maybe a year or more. And it would cost. I had already used up all my PTO. My job had replaced me. I was unemployed, stuck in a house the family wanted back, married to a man who hadn't spoken a kind word in weeks. Then Brittany did something I didn't expect. She posted on Facebook a long fake post, talking about how some people take advantage of grieving families and how Dad changed his will in a moment of confusion. No names, but everyone knew who she meant. People started messaging me. Some supportive. Most weren't. Gold digger. Manipulator. One said, "Enjoy stealing from a dead man." That one hit me hardest. I tried to call Drew. No answer. I texted. No reply. 2 hours later, he posted a photo of himself at dinner with Mark and Brittany. Caption said, "Real family sticks together." That night, I went into our room, what used to be our room. I opened the closet. Half his stuff was gone. He'd moved out without a word. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the wall. Then I looked at Walter's letter again. I read it until I couldn't see through the tears. The next morning, I made a call. Not to a lawyer, to a reporter. Walter wasn't just a retired Navy vet. He'd been a volunteer firefighter. A local hero. The kind of man people still remembered. The kind of man whose last days mattered. I was done staying quiet. They wanted a war?
Fine.
I'd fight. And I had more than a letter. I had proof. I didn't just call a reporter. I called someone I knew from years ago, Melissa Grant. She used to cover human interest pieces for the Post and Courier before she moved on to bigger outlets. We'd met at a charity auction Walter dragged me to once. She remembered me. I told her everything. The full story, how Walter declined, what I did, what they didn't do. I gave her the letter, the will, medical records, hospice notes, even photos of me with Walter. Me feeding him, helping him into bed, sitting with him while he slept. But I held one thing back. The camera. It wasn't something I planned. At first, I set it up just to monitor Walter at night, in case he fell. But when the family started acting suspicious and the lawyer warned me to document everything, I kept it rolling. Quietly. Always pointed away from anything private, but enough to show how things really were. What the footage showed was undeniable. Me helping him take pills. Me reading to him. Him calling me his girl. More than once, he said, "I want you to have the house, sweetheart." On camera.
Clear as day.
Melissa's jaw dropped when she watched it. "You realize," she said, "if you'd released this earlier, the case would have been over already." I didn't care about fast. I cared about final. So she ran the story. Front page online. A long, detailed feature. Daughter-in-law or caregiver angel. Inside one woman's final months caring for a dying vet while his family traveled the world. It went viral. The comments exploded. Thousands. People furious. Supportive. Outraged at the family. Where was his real family? She deserves more than the house. She gave that man his dignity back. But the twist that really set fire to everything? Walter's old Navy buddies saw the article. And one of them, Gus Templeton, shared it on a massive veterans Facebook group. Then another twist hit. Turns out Walter had been quietly donating to that group's emergency fund for years. Tens of thousands. They thought he didn't have family. They had no idea his kids were alive, much less fighting over his will. That group, over 300,000 strong, started digging. And they found Brittany's Facebook post. And Mark's real estate business. And Drew's firm. They started leaving reviews. Not fake ones, just links to the article and a few words. Is this your partner? This your sister? This the man suing a woman who cared for a dying vet? Drew's firm made a statement the next day, distancing themselves from the ongoing personal dispute. Mark's business page was flooded. And Brittany? She deleted her Facebook account entirely. But that wasn't even the biggest twist. The family's lawsuit had triggered a legal audit of Walter's estate, standard when wills are contested. And in that audit, the estate lawyer found something Drew hadn't counted on. 2 transfers. Small ones. Done weeks before Walter passed. Drew had used his father's debit card. Once for $300 at a bar. Once for $1,200 at a luxury men's clothing store. Unauthorized. No power of attorney. No verbal consent. Technically, it was elder financial abuse. They had accused me of that. Now there was paperwork showing he did it himself. And just like that, everything shifted. After the audit findings came out, everything went quiet for a couple of days. Then Drew showed up at the house. He didn't knock. Just walked in with his spare key like he still had a right to. I was in the kitchen, barefoot, in an old t-shirt, heating leftover soup. He looked thinner. Eyes bloodshot. But the arrogance was still there. He held up a paper. You leaked this. It was the audit report. Highlighted. No, I said. You did. When you stole from your dying father. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just sneered. You think anyone's gonna care that I bought a couple things? You manipulated a dying man. I handed him the flash drive with the footage. Watch it. Then tell me who manipulated who. He didn't take it. You think you've won?
No, I said.
I think you're scared I'm not done. That was the last time I saw him face to face. The fallout came fast after that. The court hearing for the will dispute was set for early February. But their attorney tried to withdraw. The PR mess had scared him off. Brittany tried to replace him with a more aggressive lawyer, but it didn't help. The footage changed everything. Once my lawyer submitted it as evidence, the judge moved the case forward. Quick review. Clear proof. No more delays. Mark backed out first. Filed a notice of withdrawal. Then Brittany. Only Drew held out of pride, maybe. Or spite. But he didn't show up to the next hearing. They lost. The judge ruled the will valid. Legal. Binding. I was the rightful owner of the house. But that wasn't the win I was waiting for. The letter from Adult Protective Services came next. They had reviewed the financial audit, and they were opening a case. Against Drew. I didn't initiate it. The estate lawyer was required to report any suspected abuse. The paper trail was clear. Unauthorized charges. No consent. No documentation. That alone was enough. His firm's name was still in the article. And now they had a state case tied to his name. I heard from a mutual friend he'd been asked to take an indefinite leave. Brittany and Mark? They vanished. No apology. No retraction. Just silence. I stayed quiet too. Until I remembered something Walter said once, back in August. Right after I'd helped him clean up from a fall. His voice had been weak, but his words stuck with me. People show you who they are when they think they don't need you anymore. He was right. They showed me everything. And I wasn't finished showing them what that cost. I didn't sell the house right away. I lived there. Fixed it up room by room. It became mine slowly. Less like a battlefield. More like a place of peace. I kept the chair where Walter used to sit. I kept his Navy photo on the mantle. Every inch reminded me why I'd stayed. And what I'd survived. The lawyer told me I could sue for defamation. Brittany's post, Mark's texts, Drew's accusations, any of it would have been enough. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted something more permanent. I contacted the same reporter, Melissa, again. Gave her full access. Footage, the final court ruling, the APS letter. Everything. She pitched it as a follow-up. When the truth wins, the woman accused of stealing a dying man's house who actually saved his life. The story ran across multiple outlets. Walter's name got cleared again, this time nationally. And the backlash? Drew's firm quietly ended his contract. No press release. No party. Just a removed bio and silence. Mark lost a big client. Someone who saw the article and didn't like what they read. Brittany's kids got pulled out of private school after the tuition help their dad left behind. Money they thought was guaranteed was revoked per the will's update. I didn't have to do a thing to make it happen. That was the beauty of it. They built their own trap and walked into it. But I wasn't done. There was one more letter. I'd found it hidden in a desk drawer in Walter's study, dated the same week as the will. It wasn't meant for a lawyer. Just a note he scribbled late at night. If they forget what love looks like, maybe this will remind them. I scanned it, framed it, sent a copy to each of them, with a handwritten post-it. He remembered everything. Then I blocked every number. I changed my last name back to my maiden one. Filed for divorce. No lawyers. Drew didn't contest. I think he knew he'd already lost more than a marriage. Months passed. Life settled. Sometimes people still message me, strangers who saw the story. Veterans. Widows. Caregivers. They say it made them feel seen. I keep Walter's letter in my nightstand. Not because I need to prove anything anymore, but because when I read it, I remember who I am and who they chose to become. They tried to erase me. Instead, they erased themselves.